Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
So it's very lovely once again to come into the Dharma hall, the meditation space that we have here together, and already see lovely welcoming messages welcoming us into this space. And if you haven't already, feel really invited to put some words into the chat, and if you prefer just to be here in silence, your presence is deeply appreciated in both, or maybe we could say in all possible ways. So my name's Nathan. I'm guiding the sessions this week. Hopefully we've met already, but if not, then happy to explain a bit more about myself another time. You can use the chat or anything if you feel that you want more info, and I'll respond. But otherwise, we'll get into the sessions. We'll start with a little reflection, and then we'll go into a practice with a bit of light guidance that will kind of align with what I'm trying to put across today. And we're basically exploring this idea of time. And this day's session is about making time. So as way of an intro and review and kind of context, I'll just mention yesterday we talked a bit more about kind of bringing the quality of our attention, and by adding qualities through that attention, we're kind of using time well. I guess that's how I would kind of put that in short. And the quality of our attention and the qualities that we want to bring into that attention aligned with our intentions, or what we really wish to see more of, which in a way aligns deeply with our sense of value, what we value, what's important to us, what brings meaningfulness to our life. So we're using our time to bring that sense of meaningfulness through how we attend. Something to keep in mind and kind of carry across. It's also, we don't need to worry about the quantity of present moments, right? That can be a bit of a pressure in our practice. Oh, I've been lost for, thousands of years or millions of moments or whatever. But this moment, this is a moment I can meet with quality, the qualities that bring meaningfulness to my life. Right? And that's in a sense, literally, but also figuratively, or as a view we could take up. That's all we have to do in this moment. It's all we can do. Is cultivate the kind of quality of this present moment meeting. Okay. The day before, which also is kind of just important to kind of mention that and link back to that, is we spoke about kind of changing our sense of time. Particularly waiting, slowing down, waiting, slowing down. You just wait now. Don't need to rush into the next moment. Wait with this one. It starts to make more time, or allow the time that we have to expand, to deepen, to become something else. Okay, and I wish to kind of like continue with these threads, but particularly that thread, this making more time. Right? So today's session is about making time. So why would that be important? Well, oftentimes we feel that we're being asked for our time, or we feel that we should give our time to things. And oftentimes with that, it's funny how time turns up in all these sentences in different ways, but often we don't feel we have enough time. We don't feel we have enough time. Yeah. I might just take my glasses off because they're reflecting the light so much, it's almost distracting. So what would it mean for us to really make time? What would it mean to make time? Meditation, in a way, is like magic. I've said this here in the Sangha Live sessions before, and meditators are magicians in a way. And one of the things that we can magic up is we can make time. We can make time. And you know, I really like to say to people, you know, can we meet? Can we do this? Can we? Could you take on this thing? You know, join me with doing this. I really like to say I can make time for that. Yeah, I will make time for that. I'll make time for you. And just saying that actually helps to kind of shift me from, you know, what we were talking before. I don't have enough time. Is it kind of someone talked about as being time poor, or kind of a sense of time poverty. And time is precious. And if we can, in a moment, just allow ourselves to feel a bit more time rich, yeah, it kind of changes things. And if we act that way, yeah, if we act in our life in that way, it kind of encourages a different way of thinking. It's like, yeah, there's time. There's time. I have time. I'll make time. What does that mean? So can we make time? And if I think I am something, I become that. If I act in that way, I am that. But there's no other way to define what someone is than how they act. Yeah, I would say. We can talk about that. There's a chat, there's a question and answers box. If you want to challenge any of these views, or you want to hear more about it, I can touch into that. So all of meditation, putting it in grassroots, simple, this is how it goes, right? Attention is our tool in meditation. Like, what are you paying attention to? How are you paying attention to that? Yeah. Particularly the how is the tool of the meditator, bringing attention with more kindness, more spaciousness, more ease. Beautiful, really changes experience. So we bring our attention to life, and attention comes to life and brings to life whatever it is that we're paying attention to. So attention, we bring attention to our life, and attention itself comes to life, right, and brings to life more and more. And I mean that both poetically and you know, in all the possible ways you could interpret that. So coming closer shows more. Coming closer shows more. This is a really important thing that we can see. Like, come closer to a breath, more intimacy, more sensitivity, and we will see more, notice more. Yeah. You know, Henry Miller, the great writer, said, you know, the moment one gives attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. You know, these things become worlds. Breath becomes a whole universe to explore. Okay. So life is in the details as well. And what happens to our life when we attend to more? Attend to more. So as a meditator, both practitioner and someone who comes and shares my experience of practicing, I have these little like slogans that help me understand what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And one of the practices I like to do is, what am I not noticing? What am I not noticing? I know there's something. In fact, I know there's a lot I'm not noticing. Always a lot I'm not noticing. And something that goes unnoticed or overlooked is actually what's okay, maybe even what's pleasant. The mind fixates and agitates and reacts to what's unpleasant a lot of the time. Yeah, we want to notice what's not okay, and that's important to, you know, for an entity that wants to, you know, live to tomorrow in a dangerous world. Notice what's not okay, and you'll get through. As a meditator, we can take up this view. What am I not noticing? And actually include a lot more. So this is a principle called Vedana, which we're not going to go into before, but I'm sure I've talked about it here, probably done a whole week on it at certain times. But it's this making of experiences. It's either pleasant, yeah, it seems to us as unpleasant, or it seems to us as neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And when it seems to be in that kind of third category, it's like, well, don't bother with it. Don't pay attention to it. Okay. So there's something that we don't notice in the world, and it actually makes up most of the world. Right? It's not dark matter or dark energy. We're not talking about that. But it's this in between feeling. So it's not really pleasant. It's not really unpleasant, right? when we bring attention to these things, they come alive in such a beautiful way. Such a beautiful way. They're quieter types of experiences. They don't demand, they don't agitate us in those ways, and we tune into them, and they can be really, really beautiful, really delightful, maybe even blissful to pay attention to those at times, right? Why that happens is actually for quite an interesting principle. As I understand it, giving your attention to someone, like many of you are giving your attention to me, or you've given attention to someone else, or someone's given attention to you, these are acts of kindness. They're acts of generosity. Giving your attention, your most precious attention. And your life is where you pay your attention, where you give your attention, where you direct your attention. And a lot of times it's just accidental, habitual, just pay attention to that and this. And sometimes it's to what's not nice, what's not enjoyable, what's not pleasant to be with. Yeah. And we're not saying, well, ignore all of that, don't worry about the problems of the world. In fact, we're saying something quite different, which is pay attention to what's nice, what's beautiful, what's enjoyable, right? Include what's not been included. Don't allow it to be excluded any longer. Yeah? Include that. Including what we forgot or are not primed to include helps us, feel more well-being, which actually helps us to act for the good. Helps us to challenge inequalities and many of the, sufferings in the world from a place of well-being, from a place of resourcefulness. So there's kindness in attention. You bring that kindness to things which are not noticed. They've been overlooked, ignored, unnoticed, and can be really lovely. Can be really lovely. So this is actually using a principle which I thought about, and maybe others have kind of talked about, but it kind of occurred to me. It's like, that idea is like, why does time slow as a glass falls off the table? Yeah, or like other accidents or I remember a time coming down a hill on my bicycle, a bit reckless, and then there's a car coming over a bridge that was only wide enough for a bridge, and just seeing my bike come towards it. I was fine in the end, but just the whole sense is like, I remember that time slowing down in that experience. Yeah, many of us will have those types of experience. Why does that happen? Why does time slow down there? It's the sense of time, of course, and we say there's no independent time. Objective time is not what we live in. We live in the kind of emotional, experiential activity of time, and it's a dependent arising, so to say. Yeah, it depends on different things. So literally what's happening is we're kind of like a movie. How do we get slow motion in a movie? Well, they record more frames per second, and then they play it back at a process in which you can see it. So if there's 1,000 frames per second played back at 30 frames per second, then that's going to be multiple times longer to take through. And we can see, flies beating their wings or things that, just are imperceptible at the normal speed of life. So our precious attention makes precious time because of how much imprints into the mind, into the memory that go down. So when we pay attention to more, when we pay attention to more details, time slows down. It takes more time to have that experience. Yeah. And so it doesn't need to be just for the negative, the glass falling over, the bike sliding out of control. It's all about what we pay attention to and how we pay attention to it. So what about paying attention to what's overlooked, what's being ignored? Yeah. When we pay attention to something, it adds more dimensions. Adds more dimensions, adds more details, adds more. It's more and more and more. Yeah. And so that, Henry Miller's Blade of Grass becoming a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. Yeah, or William Blake with the auguries of innocence, to see a world in a grain of sand. Yeah, and a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Yeah, time's not objective. It's not objective. And it's our sense of time we feel. Right? And more, we'll start also noticing that sense of time. There's a sense of time here. As we move through the week, we'll find that more and more applicable. It's like, well, when there's more of that sense of time, maybe there's more of a sense of well-being. Yeah. And whichever direction we take it, we can change this time, change this sense of time. And what we're going to do is go through something like the breath as a practice, going through it, just like getting to know all the parts of the breath, right? And really seeing how much intimacy, sensitivity, closeness, proximity, whatever it is, and kindly attention, letting something like a breath come alive. And if the breath, the body is not the right place for you, to translate this across to sounds, the beginnings of sounds, the middles of sounds, the absences of sounds, all of that. It's like more and more we can bring all of that into the attention. Yeah. So let's have a practice. Get to know the more quiet, the more subtle elements of our experience. And yeah, excited to tune into these experiences with you. And then we'll come back and have time for any kind of questions, reflections that you have there for this. And I have a few in my pocket from yesterday to open up. But yeah, if we're going to explore our experience, maybe we're going to explore the breath. What would be a good posture for that for you? Posture that's going to encourage the wakefulness that you wish to have, that's going to encourage the spaciousness that you might wish to support. I'll have a few moments silently getting familiar with the body, the environment, as we settle in. Body, heart, mind coming together in the present experience. Here we are. Here we are, one of the few conscious beings knowing the moment of their existence. So there is a body. You become a little more familiar with the body, if that's accessible for us right now. Otherwise, maybe we'll meet the sounds. Whatever your intention you may have shared yesterday, if you were there, let's actually just encourage a sense of that natural kindness in attention, a gift of attention. If you're happy to work with the breath, you might just want to think, where do I like to meet the breath? Where do you sense it? Where is it easy to attend to the breath? This may not actually be where you've habitually learnt to practice. It might be most enjoyable maybe to feel it in the belly, in the dance of the diaphragm, lifting up under the rib cage and then dropping back down. Or in the expansion and resting back of the chest, or the upper shoulders, lifting, falling. Seeing if we can meet the breath sensations. So the attention is like holding a feather, a downy feather in the palm of our hands. Not squeezing and crushing the delicacy of the feather or the breath or the sounds, but also not letting the hand drop away. What's that spacious intimacy, that vibrant tranquility that allows us to really observe the movements of experience, breath, or if we're not with the breath, with the sounds perhaps. And seeing if you can be with the next whole breath. And then another whole breath. A little few more words of setup, and then I'm going to set a little task for us, those who wish to follow along, and then I'll be quiet for a while, come back and extend that task until we've got the whole breath, delicacy and details. So don't forget to stay relaxed. Let the face stay soft. Let the belly come out. Hands, arms, shoulders relaxed. Sometimes helpful to feel the attention coming from the back of the body. It encourages a sense of resting back. And so now in your chosen place to observe the breath, and just translating this to sounds, however that works for you, start to see if you can notice for the next 3 breaths how the breath begins. Just that first bit, the beginning movements of the breath. There's quite a lot of delicacy there, but seeing if you can let the rest of the breath happen by itself. If the mind follows the breath, it's fine. If it doesn't, it's fine. What we want to be ready for is that first intimations of some kind of movement, almost like we're trying to tune into the molecular movement of air, starting to turn to breath, however we feel it, wherever we're sensing it or imagining it. It's also fine. Yeah, don't be overly prescriptive. It has to be real. So it's how you feel it. Next 3 breaths, and then rest for a moment, and then when you're ready, again, another 3 breaths. We do that for a few minutes. Those first beginnings. So as we do this, just taking a wider view, just noticing what kind of attention we need to bring to be able to notice the delicacy of those really just beginnings of a breath. How delicate we can get the attention, how receptive, how engaged. So just in very broad strokes, just noticing how it is to attend in this way. And if it's enjoyable, we can make this a practice that we do, that we come to, that we This is what being mindful of breath means for us. Okay, we're going to explore the other end of the breath, that out breath ending, the fading, the last sense of movement as the breath leaves the body, as the sensations fade into stillness. And letting the rest of the breath happen, and we can be with it or not with it, we don't mind. It's really get to know the last moments of the breath. And again, I recommend doing these in threes, and then having a rest, and then another three. But do it how you like to do it. So feeling invited to explore, to experiment, to find the easiest and most beneficial way of doing this for yourself. I do find sometimes it's that resting back that opens up the attention, that allows the spacious intimacy. Noticing the kind of attention that supports you being able to tune into this, allowing this experience, to feel awareness. And noticing how that feels, if it feels any particular way. So any of these can be a practice in themselves, but we're going to explore a little more. Let's go back to the in-breath. Maybe we don't need to worry too much about the beginnings. If the beginnings catch attention, that's fine, but so the breath feels like it's starting to become that whole recognizable in-breath movement. It's a bit like a wave, and all the way up to its fullness. And maybe the attention might also include that quietening into the stillness between the in and the out breath, but not going too far into it at this point. Just enjoying that kind of coming in, the tide of the breath coming in up the beach of attention, awareness, body. Again, 3 breaths if it's helpful. Remembering to have rests. Face soft, shoulders, belly soft. And remembering to re-engage. 3 breaths. Rising in breath. Again, noticing the kind of attention that supports that. And let's catch the out breath as it becomes evident, also going to its full journey before fading out. Again, recognizing the kind of attention we need to move with the breath, be with the breath, become the breath. Let the details, the elements, the experience come alive. The last area or areas of the breath are those periods of stillness. Breaths in before it goes out. Let's start with that one. What's that like? The kind of the fading of the in-breath before the arising of the out-breath. What a rich world in that apparent stillness. Perhaps much more dynamic, vibrant than we thought. If you need the steadiness of the movement, including a little more of the ending of the in-breath, beginning of the out-breath. Notice if a leaning in or a leaning back, that's a kind of an emotional suggestion, or maybe it's physical as well for you a little bit. But experimenting, getting to know what helps us get to know. And let's get to know the ending of the out breath into that stillness before the in breath becomes. Letting the rest of the breath take care of itself. We might attend to it or not, whatever's helpful. But really wanting to tune into the apparent stillness, or the subtle movements there. It might now feel possible to be with the whole of the breath. Notice how attention, bring in all those different ways of attending, dancing through those as the breath dances through consciousness. A more light and spacious attention, a more engaged one, perhaps with the stillnesses. 3 breaths at a time and rest. As we come into the last minutes, last moments of the practice, recognizing what you've cultivated, how attention meets life, how you feel. And if this is in any way beneficial, we can bring it with us, and we can also be committed to exploring this some more at some later stage. Both. So as we transition, we can also enrich this moment, including the aromas. They're often overlooked, or the flavor, the tactile senses of the whole body, the sounds of this moment, and the visual field. Thank you for your practice.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.